Gary Wilson, and welcome to this week's live Investor Agent webinar. And again, welcome aboard to all the folks who've come through the Investor Agent Training Program who are currently in it, and also those who've come through one of the other training programs like Flipping for Profits and Rental Profits Without the Pain. Some of you have even taken the what we call the property management course, okay? We call that Turning Rental Problems into Real Estate Profits. There has been a lot of interest in that lately. I can kick off another session if you guys like. So if any of you have an interest in property management, let me know. Obviously, it's a very profitable model. It's a separate line of business. You know, it's an entire training program in and of itself. But let me know if any of you have an interest in that. Please let me know. And we'll make a plan for that. It does take about 8 or 9 weeks, but it's only 1 hour per week. And it dovetails very nicely into the Investor Agent Program and the Rental Profits programs, particularly for those of you who already have your own rentals and you're looking to offer that to other people. Just things you need to know and processes and procedures. We actually give you policies and procedures. It's pretty much a canned program. So in any case, welcome aboard, everybody, particularly the newer folks. So for the newer folks, a couple of rules of engagement here. You'll see you have your own question box. That's where you type in questions. From time to time, I can and will unmute you so that you're live on a one-on-one basis. The way this works is you tell me what you want to talk about. In advance, you send me an email. I like emails, text messages, but sometimes texts are hard because I get a lot of them, and I drive a lot. But emails work great because I check in my emails usually every single day. So you let me know what you want to discuss. I'll put that together and we'll discuss it on these weekly webinars. And it's live, it's unscripted, it's unfiltered, and it is recorded. So you get a recording of it the very next day. So in any case, welcome aboard to the new folks. And just to give you an idea of where we are, we've gone over a lot of material in the first half of this year, all mainly focused on marketing. In other words, late January through June was all marketing material. And what we've done since June is just catch up on all of your requests for the things that we want to talk about. Last week we talked about building a team. The week before we talked about hiring virtual assistants. And tonight we're going to talk about the process you go through, the actual process you go through when you work with investors. We're going to do it in 2 parts. The first part is when you're working with flippers, what are the actual steps you and your flipper take so that you're working effectively and profitably. And then the second half of tonight's webinar, we'll go into the same thing, but with landlords, with people who buy rentals. Very similar, but there's some unique differences in the kind of the middle part of it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I have had some requests to go over some of the calculators and spreadsheets again. It probably has been a few months, so maybe I can do that next week. If you want to talk about anything else, please let me know. Because that stuff is more academic. We can do that anytime. But we do have a lot of newer folks, so it might be wise to do that. The other thing that's been coming up is, again, property management. So maybe I can do a kind of an overview of property management, just hit on some key points. Or maybe we'll break that up. I'll tell you what, let's do property management maybe in a couple sessions. Because there's multiple components, and if you really have a strong interest in it, then let me know. And it looks like we already have some of you saying, yes, I do have a strong interest. Hi, Desiree. How you doing? So, Desiree, let's first get you the book, Turning Rental Problems into Real Estate Profits. Just shoot Beverly an email. She'll send you the copy of that. Doesn't cost anything. So, in any case, that's what's coming up next. So let's go ahead and dive in, guys. If you do have questions, please remember to post them. I'm going to slide the screen over here, my panel, so I can dig into the material, and I'll take a pause, every few minutes or so, just to catch up on the questions. So welcome aboard, and we're live for recording, and let's get rocking and rolling. Okay, let's slide this over. Oops, I think I just saw a question coming in. Hang on one second. So this is Joe. Let's see. Joe's asking an overview of property management. 2 sessions will be ideal. I tell you what. Let's I'll just kind of look for the feedback then, guys. In the next week, seems like property management has definitely been a hot topic lately. I know for me personally, it was a very profitable endeavor over a lot of years, and it really grew. I mean, it's just amazing how you can grow that business without a lot of advertising and marketing. It's just it's pretty powerful stuff. So we'll do that, and I'll weave in. We'll figure out how and when to do the calculators and spreadsheets too. So in any case, let's get started, guys. If you see on my screen, you're going to see the bold type step-by-step instructions for working with flippers. So we're going to start with that first, okay, and then we're going to go into the what we do with the renters, or excuse me, the landlords, okay. Whoops, that moved up too quickly. Hang on one second. Let me slide that back up. Okay, first things first. Now, if you think back to what you learned in the original class that you attended, we talk about interviewing your prospective investors, okay? And it's very, very important. So let's say you did some of your marketing. You know, there's 20 different things you can do. Maybe you did one of the basic ones like the booklet, for example, okay? And you get responses. The first thing you want to do is you want to interview them. So you want to get them on the phone, and they're likely going to have something of value that you gave them, like the booklet, for example, that's going to have in there, information, tools, inventory, things like that. And they're going to have typically an example or a story of an investment that someone had done. Maybe it's mine. If you want to use mine, that's fine. But in any case, they call you, and they're likely going to know, because of the marketing you did, what type of investing they want to do, whether it's buying rentals or buying flips. Now, if they haven't gotten to that point, this is an easy conversation to have. You just want to ask them questions, show them examples of flips, show them examples of rentals, and you just pull them right off your MLS, okay? And you've all heard me talk about how to build a booklet, so I don't want to get into that tonight. I just use that as an example. So they call you. You're going to go through the material that you've already sent them. Again, in this case, we'll use the example of a booklet. And throughout the conversation, they're going to probably tell you at some point, hey, you know what? I think I want to lean towards rentals, or I think I want to lean towards flips. They're going to tell you what their intuition is telling them based on the samples or the examples that you gave them. So that's the first part, is basically build rapport and go through the interview process, which is really a natural conversation that you're having with them, and listen to what they tell you. You're going to ask them questions, usually open-ended questions, so you get them to discuss and carry on a conversation openly. But basically, you're doing an interview first. And throughout the interview, you'll gather vital information, where they are, what they're likely to want to do versus, flipping versus rentals. And then once you get to the point where they say, hey, what's next? Okay, what do we do now? I'm excited. Then you want to qualify them. And this is where you ask them these three important questions. What do you have in savings? Okay. What is your credit score? And do you have an available line of credit that you can use? Okay, so far so good. You're on the phone with them, you're having your conversation, and you've qualified them. Now the next thing you do is you have them email you, okay, and you're going to tell them, this is the script you're going to use. You're going to say, please email me with a recap of our conversation in your own words. This is you given the instruction to this point. They're called a prospect. Then the prospect is going to email you back with a recap of the conversation, including, they're also going to include their full name, their email address, and of course you already have their phone number, and you're going to give them your email address. This is my old email address. I actually still use it. For a lot of advertisements go there and things like that. So in any case, you do the email, and this is a critical thing to remember, guys. The folks who email you back, which should be a majority of them at this point, are the ones you want to work with, because the fact that they followed your instruction is a strong indicator that they're willing to take action. They're willing to engage with you on an even level. In other words, they think of you as being every bit as important as them in their effort to build wealth and income. And they're showing commitment. They're willing to commit, okay? Those are the folks you want to work with. The folks who do not email you back, I wouldn't recommend working with them, because they're telling you in their behavior that they're not willing to follow up with a simple email. And if you try to work with them out in the field, they're likely to exhibit the same kind of behavior. And it's just going to be frustrating for you. So in any case, you look for the email. The next thing you do that's not on here, and it should be on here, I apologize, is this is when you send them your buyer's agency agreement. So they email you back. You respond to them that night. Thank you for the email. So this is not something you do over a period of days. This is all happening in short order. So you send them an email back thanking them, and in the email you send back to them, you're going to include your buyer's agency agreement in an attachment, okay? Or you can tell them you're going to send something in dotloop if you're using dotloop to send things electronically, okay? But you're going to have your buyer's agency agreement already filled out, and in that email you're going to give them the 3 reasons why they should sign the buyer's agency agreement, okay? The three main benefits. And then tell them, please, it's already filled out, please sign this, return it to me, and then when they return it to you, that's when you begin to set them up on the system for searches. And this is when you begin to do some of your other work, like looking for inventory, okay? So that's the first part. So far we're up to step number 2, all right? And you nail that part of it. The rest of it is just a matter of following instructions in the right sequence. Everything falls into place more correctly and more profitably when you do this first part completely. You don't want to skip any steps. You definitely want to have them send you the email back. You definitely want to get a buyer's agency agreement. In the future, you're going to be getting listings too. This is just to help you get started with a couple of clients initially. And then you'll know when it's time to get listings, and we'll show you how to do that, okay? So in any case, you get that back. You get the buyer's agency agreement return. Now you can set them up on a search in your MLS system using the methods that we teach. So in other words, in the case of flipping, you know that in Module 1 we teach you how to use the school report, melissadata.com, and your planning commission website. So you're going to determine what are the best areas for flipping homes, and you're going to set up searches in those areas, okay? And you also know the price ranges, okay? What we call the after repair value for the area, or what we call fair market value sometimes of the area. So you use those tools to determine precisely where you're going to build your searches and what areas are you going to build your searches in. That way you're only providing data that makes the most sense for investing. In other words, it doesn't have to be the most expensive or the nicest. It doesn't have to be the cheapest or the least expensive, but it should definitely be in the right area where the most people want to buy, okay? And we call that our middle class family with looking to buy a medium price home, and they have 2 children. That's if you look at a bell curve of transactions, in the middle of the bell, that's the bulk or the greatest volume of transactions, and most of those are made up of middle class families looking to buy medium price homes with 2.3 children, or whatever the stat is, 2.1, 2.3. So the school report helps you narrow that down, just like Melissa Data does, okay? And right now we're just using the MLS as the example because it's the one tool that everybody completely recognizes. Later on in the training program, we show you how to use one of the techniques as a letter coupled with your county's or your municipal property tax assessment database, and sometimes even using your public records database, okay? But that's in the future. For right now, let's assume this is all we're doing. We're just going to set up a search initially on the MLS. So you set up the search based on the criteria you determined in Module 1 by using those efforts we described: school report, Melissa Data, Planning Commission website. Okay, now your client is going to start getting these listings popping up on a regular basis. As listings get added to the system, they get notified automatically, as long as you set your search up correctly. And the initial search, when you first turn this on for a new client, they will get all the listings that are currently out there that are active for sale within that criteria that you and your client have to determine, okay? So the first time they get a whole batch of properties to go through, and then every day thereafter they get the updates. As soon as listings come on board, they get notified, they get the full listing. You always want to give them the full listing every single time. Always full listing, okay? Now, the next thing you want to do is have them separate the wheat from the chaff. In other words, you want to have them go through the properties in a methodical process to narrow it down from, you might be starting off with 90 properties that meet the criteria. Well, there's no way you're going to look at 90 properties, you or your client. So you've got to narrow that down. You've got to narrow it down dramatically, and the method work that you use to do that is what I'm going to go into next. Now, before I get into that next part of this subject, let me slide my panel back over and look for questions at this point. So hang on one second. Okay, looks like we do have questions. So this is Drew. Hi, Drew. So Drew's asking, okay, 3 benefits of using buyer's agency agreement. Well, there could be more. There could be 2, there could be 3, there could be 4. Actually, Glenn's asking the same thing, so I guess I should probably go into that. Okay, the main benefit is this. If you think about our fiduciary obligations as a licensee, for general consumers, not clients, but just general consumers, we automatically owe honesty and fairness. Okay, that's for everybody. When it comes to your clients, the people that you consider clients, your level of responsibility gets elevated. And what that means is the 2 main benefits are, number one, this. You will keep their information confidential no matter what, unless they give you written permission to use something about them personally in your negotiations, for example. Okay, you keep their information confidential. The only exception is you don't have to put this in your benefits, but any material defects on the property that you as a licensee are aware of, you have to disclose that to the general public. To anybody looking at that property, you have to disclose known material defects. Okay, but when it comes to your client, you don't have to disclose anything about them at all. People will ask you, well, why are they selling? You just say, you know what, they're moving up. They've been transferred, whatever the case may be. But you don't have to tell them anything else, especially if they're going through some type of a hardship. Okay? All right, the second benefit is if you happen to discover critical information about the other party, in this case, let's say you're selling a property and you have a fiduciary obligation to keep your owner's information private with this form. See, without this form, you don't have that obligation. You can, if they tell you something, it's considered, open information because they told it to you, and you can share it with somebody else. With this buyer's agency agreement, you legally cannot disclose anything they tell you about themselves. On the other hand, if you learn something about the other party, all right, you can bring that back to your client. So let's say you're the listing agent, and you discover something about the buyer that maybe you're not supposed to know, or the buyer's agent slipped up and told you, or the client was in the house looking at a property and they accidentally blurted something out, not knowing you were listening. You absolutely have an obligation to pass that on to your client because they signed the agency agreement. Well, actually, I used the example of listing. Let's go back to the original example. You're the buyer's agent and your client is the buyer. So we're just reversing the role, but the same principle applies. You keep your buyer's information confidential, and if you discover something about the seller, you now have an obligation to share that with your buyer based on the buyer's agency agreement. So those are the 2 main benefits, right? The third one is this. You should always mention this to your client. Say, look, you can work with any old agent out there. Any agent can open up doors and point out the pretty carpet and the nice looking chandeliers, but only you, the professionally trained investor agent who's certified, can actually act as a consultant, as a guide, as an advisor to that client. And that's the real benefit is when you have this in writing, when you have a contract with them to represent them, your role now shifts from just providing, being honest and fair to actually being an advisor, a consultant, a guide. And you do that by sharing all these tools and information with them. Share them with them the school report, share with them the calculators and spreadsheets. Okay. That's really the third big reason. All right. So in any case, let me, I think there were 2 people who had the same question, and let's see here. Okay. Somebody's saying they had a sound issue. It seems like it sounds okay, though. At least everything's telling me the sound is okay. So it looks like it is because I'm getting other feedback. Okay. So Desiree is saying, do you ever follow up if the prospect doesn't email? Hey, Desiree, what I might do is I might give them one get out of jail free card. In other words, I'll follow up with them and I'm not going to chase them down, but I'll say, hey, it's been a couple days. Do you still intend to follow through with this? I have time for you, but I need to schedule you in. I work based on a scheme. You always want to let them know that you work on a schedule. And so you can give them one get out of jail free card, and if they still don't follow up, then just let it go. It's just not worth chasing them down. But yes, Desiree, I would actually give them the benefit of the doubt one time. Okay. Okay. Looks like we're good on the questions here. Let me just double check one more time. Okay. Looks like we are all caught up. So let me go back here, reduce my panel, and get back into the subject. Okay. So now we're on step number 5. All right. Now this is what you're doing when you're working with flippers, okay? And by the way, guys, if we run out of time, the one on landlords I will do next week. Don't worry, we won't move forward until we cover these because this is critical. In fact, when you nail this process here, you've got it. I mean, everything else is academic. This is the one set of skills that's behavioral, which means you have to practice this over and over again to master it. And when you master it, your return on investment, that the number of commissions that you'll get per hour worked goes up dramatically, okay? Because everybody's working, operating, listening, singing from the same song sheet. Okay, so let's get back here. So your client is now getting all these listings, and you're going to teach them to go through the listings using this multi-step process here, okay? So step number 1 is this. Let's say they've got 100 properties they're looking at. They got 100 listings they're going through, all right? Initially, the number one thing we want to figure out is, because of the homework you've done to set up this search properly, you already know what the average repair value is of a property, or excuse me, after repair value, or again, it's the same thing as fair market value. You know, it's what a property should sell for. You'll know those values for the area. So what you're looking for on the first cut, the first pass of analysis on these properties, is which of those properties has a list price that's below the fair market value for that neighborhood. That's the first thing you do. Any property that has a list price that's at fair market value or higher, you discard. You just tear it out and throw it away. You don't even ever look at them again. It takes all of a second to determine that. You're going to show this to your clients how to do that. Okay, that's the first pass. All right. Now the second pass is, now let's say in the first pass you've cut your list of properties in half. So now you're going through the remainder of the properties, and maybe there's 50 of them, and all the list prices in these properties are below market value. So now you're going to start looking at more details. You're going to get granular in your effort. And the first thing you should be looking at are the photographs, the pictures of the property. And again, this is the case of flipping, so you're looking at essentially single-family homes. Yes, you can flip rentals, and we'll talk about that as a separate matter. Anyway, so you're looking at photographs. Hopefully you've got a lot of them, but if you don't, you just have to take what you've got. You can also look at pictures online. You can Google the property. Zillow will have them out there sometimes. LoopNet, I'm sorry, not LoopNet, but Zillow, Trulia, others providers. And by the way, if you've noticed, Zillow's not just showing you properties that are listed, they're showing you all the properties in the area typically, okay? So in any case, you're looking at photographs, you're looking at the lot size, the room sizes, the basic characteristics of the property. In other words, this does look like the kind of property that if you drove by, it would find its way into the top 10, for example, okay? If you don't think it will, discard it, okay? Just get rid of it, don't worry about it. Yes, you may miss a deal here and there, but it doesn't matter. You're gonna focus on the best of the best, because those are the ones that give your client the highest probability of success. So in any case, back to this. At this point, you're looking at photographs, general information, lot size, room size, number of rooms, things like that, okay? Now you're down to, say, 25 properties, okay? The next thing you do is this. Now you get even more granular. You're looking for not just how many bedrooms, but the sizes of the bedrooms. The size of the kitchen. Does it have a separate dining room? Does it have a separate den? Does it have a separate family room? Does it have a finished basement? Does it have a basement at all? Does it have a garage? All of these things that a middle-class family looking to buy a medium-price home with a couple of children are going to be looking for themselves. That's what you're teaching your client to look at. Look at it from the eventual purchaser's eyes, the person who's going to purchase the property after it's remodeled. Okay, so you're looking at it through those lenses. This is now your third pass, and you should be narrowing it down even further by doing this pass. Get really granular. Look at everything. If you can see pictures of the utility area, how does the furnace look, for example? What does the kitchen look like? Is the kitchen big, but it's got a 30-year-old set of cabinets and countertops and things like that? Okay, if you don't have the pictures, you're going to have to all those pictures, you're going to have to focus on the description as well as the room sizes and things like that. But in any case, the point is you're narrowing it down again. You want to do at least a third pass, okay? Because you're not going to drive by 50 properties. You're not even going to drive by 25 properties. I mean, you can if you want to. Again, this is you showing your client how to do this. So the first set of drive-bys, let's say it is 25 properties, okay? In this case, it says 30. You're not driving by the properties, your client is. Okay, they've got the final set of listings. They're just going to go by there. They're not going to get out of the car unless, for some reason it makes sense to get out of the car. But for the most part, they're driving by, and they're going to reduce that number again down to, say, 10 to 15 properties, or in this case, about 12 to 13 properties. All right? They're going to throw away the ones that didn't make the cut from the drive-bys, and they're going to keep the ones that they think look like they have the greatest potential of being a good flip. All right, so now you're down to that final set of properties. And this is where you step in. Now you're going to tell your client, okay, send me an email of this final set of properties. Okay, could be 10, could be 15, all right? Now what you're going to do is you're going to check their homework, because your goal at this point is to narrow that down to about 6 properties. It could be 5, it could be 7, but you want to try to get it to an average of the 6 final properties that you're actually going to look at yourself with your client. And what you do is you go through the same thing that they went through. You're looking at those top 10 or 15 properties, look at them side by side, and grade them A and B. You're going to have your A group and your B group. Assuming they did a good job, the B group might be a really nice group to look at if nothing pans out in the A group. But right now you're going to focus on the A group, which will probably be about 6 or 7 properties. Okay, you're going to check what they did. All right, we call it checking their homework. They're going to email them back, and what you're going to say is, you don't ever say, hey, we're not going to look at these other properties. What you say is, I broke them up into 2 groups based on my review of what you provided me, and we're going to look at the top 6 properties out of, or in this case 7, out of the ones you set me, out of the final 10 or 15, we're going to look at these 6 or 7. Okay? You make your appointments at that point. You have to call the other agent, set the appointments for all those properties, and typically you'll do that in the afternoon, could be in the morning, could be a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. I generally don't do this stuff on Sundays. I never did. But I'm more than happy to go out on half of a Saturday or half a day on a Saturday, as long as it didn't interfere with my children's activities like baseball and soccer and things like that. Okay. In fact, I would give my clients every other Saturday for a half a day. That's what I did. All right. So in any case, back to the program here. We're now at step number 8. You've got your final set of properties. You're setting the appointments, and of course you want to do it strategically. So you want to think of your route as the shortest path possible, and line your properties up along that shortest path that you possibly can in, say, half-hour intervals. Okay. So in any case, you set that up, and you may have a final set of properties that you're looking at, and what you do is you actually go look at the properties, and you view them. You and your client are walking through them. So this is finally when you get in the car, turn the key, and start using your own gas. And I used to have my clients drive too. I would drive separately from them, partly because I wanted them to be able to have time between properties to think things through. I know there's 2 schools of thought there. I have done it where I would actually have them physically with me so that between properties I could pick their brain and see what they were thinking. Ended up, it didn't really make a difference at all. It didn't. Matter of fact, it made no difference. But in any case, it will give you a chance also to collect your thoughts and think through what you saw at those properties, because you need to make sure your clients didn't miss anything. All right. So in any case, you go through the properties, and your clients are going to take the rehab sheets, the information sheets, the analysis sheets, essentially what we call the worksheets, and they're the ones who are going to fill out those sheets at the property. On the final 6 or 7 properties, they're going through and filling out those worksheets and taking pictures. Okay. Now here's the beautiful thing. Throughout their process, they're doing the work, which is important. You don't want to be the one filling out the forms and doing that work, because let's say they follow through and buy one of the properties, and 6 months later something pops up. They're going to hold you accountable. They're going to say, hey, you fill out those sheets. That's why you have your clients fill them out. Remember, you're the consultant, you're the guide, you're the advisor, you're helping them through this process. But they're the ones doing the actual analysis. Very, very important. All right, they're going to do the cost sheets. You're going to help them figure out what the MAO is, which is maximum allowable offer. That's covered in Module 2. That's the most money you or your client should be paying for the property. Okay. All right, so you do that with all 7 properties in this case. Now here's where the magic happens. All right. At the end of the day, when you're finished with the last property, this is really, really important, guys. You never want to leave the scene and say, hey, that was a great day, it's getting late, why don't you review everything and give me a call when you're ready. You do not want to do that. All right. Now, before I tell you what you do want to do, let me slide my panel over and see if we have questions on that last segment that I just went over. So let's see here. We do have a question, and this is from Glenn. Hi, Glenn. So Glenn says, how do you find 30 props that are flip worthy? I have a hard time finding 1 or 2. Essentially, if you go through the process, Glenn, that we teach you in Module 1, you'll find out that they're in any area. I mean, I've taught this literally, California to Maine and Montreal to Miami. In any area, including areas like Dayton, Ohio, where there's only an average home price of $70,000, there's dozens of areas that make sense to be flipping a home. So you have to, instead of casting a wide net, you're selectively picking certain areas. You're just going to be selecting a lot of those areas initially, okay? Because you want to increase your odds as much as you can by having as many properties as you possibly can. All right. So you're not doing the screening. Your investor is. So they might go through 30, 60, 90, 100 properties, but they're the ones who are going to narrow it down to the 1 or 2 that you're describing. You're going to guide them through the process, but they're going to be doing that narrowing down. Okay. So, and by the way, Glenn, also in Module 4, you're going to get some marketing material. The letter is one of those that helps you find inventory that's not on the MLS. So I'm just going through the exercise here, using the MLS as the tool that we're using, Glenn. The reality is in practice, you'll be using other tools to find inventory that's not on the MLS. Okay, so that will help answer your question too. Okay, let me check here and see. I think we're good on questions. Let's go back here. All right, here's what I'm going to describe here next, guys. Please pay attention and please take notes. Again, this is in your training material. I would suggest you photocopy it. And I always kept a sheet with me at all times in my daily planner to make sure I wasn't missing a step. And here's one of the most critical steps. They're all critical, but here's one of the most critical steps. Once you've looked at all the properties, 6 or 7 properties, all right, and your clients filled out all of those sheets, the analysis sheets, the rehab sheets, the call sheets, all right, and you've got the listings in front of them. What you do is you just say, look, it's been a good day. Let's go ahead and compare these while we've got it fresh in our minds. Let's compare these properties. You can do it one of 2 ways. You can either review them side by side, okay, one at a time. So you take your first property and take the MLS sheet and pull up the second property, pull up that MLS sheet, look at them side by side, and ask your clients to pull up their rehab sheets and compare the 2 properties. Okay, what's the list price on both of them? What's the estimated project going to be, the flipping project? And what do we believe is the ARV, or after repair value? Okay, and you have them bring up the information and do the comparison, and they're going to pick the surviving property. One's going to be better than the other. The one that didn't make the cut, you literally ball it up and crumple it up right in front of their face and let them see you do that, or you just draw like a big red X across it and put it aside. The other version you can do is you actually lay them all out together, side by side, like in a matrix. You might have a row of 3 and a second row of 3, or something like that, or 3 rows of 2, and you just have them look at them and say, okay, of all these properties, which one can you live without the most? Which one would you say you really don't? It doesn't make the cut. It's not as nice as some of these others. You're going to eliminate it. And you put a big red X to it. And you have them continually do that. You may only get it down to 3 properties. Okay? You might get it down to 1 property, but in most cases you'll have 1 or 2 or even 3 that make sense to be investing in. Okay? And the reason you do that on the spot is you're keeping them engaged, because you're going to have them take action literally that night. All right. So in any case, you narrow it down. Let's say you narrow it down to 3 properties. All right. What you do at this point, you say, okay, that's great. I want you to go home, review your cost sheets, review your numbers, and finalize them. And I'm going to call you at 9 o'clock. This is you telling them you're going to call them. I'm going to call you at 9 o'clock. I mean, it could be 8, could be 7. What have you. At 9 o'clock, we found is a pretty safe time. Call them at 9 o'clock. You're going to have them email you, scan and email you their cost sheets, their rehab sheets, and you're going to actually have the listings because you showed them the listings. And then you're going to go over those with them and help them determine the final 1 property that they're going to make an offer on. I mean, they might be able to make 2 or 3 offers. What you don't want to do is make offers that your clients cannot back up. So if they can't buy 3 properties, you do not want to make 3 offers. If they can only buy 1 property, then you make your offers 1 at a time. I know investors will try to tell you sometimes, hey, make offers on all 3, let's see what happens. That's bad business. It's bad for your reputation. You don't want to do it. What you want to do is say, look, let's focus on this first one first. Let's get an offer in tonight, strike while the iron's hot, and they'll get us a response tomorrow, and we'll know what to do from there. All right. So in any case, the bottom line is you go through that process that evening, and then when you call them at 9 o'clock after they've emailed you their forms, you're going to go over them. You're going to have them decide on the final one, and then what you say is, okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw up the offer. I'm going to send you the offer electronically. Nowadays we use something called dotloop. Some offices you might not have that if you're not KW, but essentially you're going to scan them and email them the contract. They're going to print it out, they're going to sign it and initial it everywhere, and they're going to scan it and email it back to you along with a photocopy of their hand money check and also proof of funds. They have to prove that they have the down payment on hand, and they have to prove that they can either get a loan for the remainder or they have savings somewhere for the remainder of the purchase price. Okay? You literally submit that offer that night. You do not go to bed without submitting it. You leave a message for the other agent, let them know that it's on their in basket. When they wake up in the morning, please process it and get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, right? But that's how, guys, this is how we do the high percentage shot process. Now, I know a lot of you have been used to doing things other ways, working with the no money down owner financing guys and the go find me a good deal kind of guys. We're generally not working with those folks. You're generally in this program, you're going to be attracting new or newer investors that you're going to be growing with them, and it's much easier to get them to work with you on and engage with you on an even level. Take action on a regular basis and basically do things properly and correctly. All right. A lot of the stuff that people have been taught, I know I used to, take those programs, and I actually used to teach them at one point. The reason all the other late night gurus who are not, they're not KW, for example, they're independent. The reason they're teaching all the no money down stuff is because when they ask people about money, people tell them, I don't have any. That's why they teach all this no money down stuff. That's why they teach you got to make 100 offers to get one to stick. We don't use those methods here. We don't have to. We don't want to work with those folks anyways. I mean, you can if you want to, and I'll show you how to get more commissions from them than you may already be doing. When you work with these folks, the real investors who are doing things correctly, they actually are using their own money. They're getting bank loans at 4.5%, not hard money loans at 8.5%. Okay, they're going to be more successful. In fact, they are more successful. They're the ones who will go along with this program. It's much more pleasant. It's much easier. It's much more professional. It's much more respectful. And quite frankly, it's more productive. You and your clients both make more money. So it takes some time to embrace this. We recognize that, but you have to practice it. And you've got to give it a couple of weeks to basically stretch the legs and exercise this for us. Okay. So in any case, I want you to review that. I don't want to go over it again because you guys can replay this webinar all you want on your phone. You can use there's free apps you get. There's one free app, GoToWebinar, you can get on your phone to watch it on your phone. There's another app you can get to strip off the audio. It makes an MP3, so you can make an MP3 file and listen to it in your car, for example. Okay, but just repeat this a couple times and then start using this with your new clients. Now let me slide the panel back over here and check for questions. Okay, looks like we're okay on questions so far. So yeah, if you got questions, fire away, and I'm going to give you a second, and I will. If we don't have any questions, I will move into the 12 steps that we use for landlords. Okay, so hang on one second. Let's see. This is Ron is asking. Actually, we have a couple questions here. Okay, so hang on one second. Ron says, do you know the name of the program to strip the audio? Ron, I'm not exactly sure. We can find out from Paul. Hey, Ron, if you want to email Beverly, and I think you all have Paul's email address too. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but we'll get you that app. I think it's MP3 something. If you go onto your smartphone and go to where you buy your apps, it's free, by the way. Type in MP3 or type in like a GoToWebinar, and one should pop up that shows you how you convert that to an MP3 file. Okay, so try that, and if you don't find anything, obviously just email Beverly, and we'll make sure whatever that is, we'll get it out to the entire group. Okay, and it's an awesome program, and I remember when Paul showed me, I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay, so this is Desiree. Desiree says, my office asks that we have the buyer's agency signed before showings. Absolutely. So Desiree, if you look at this process here, we're actually doing that way up top here. So in other words, in between steps 2 and 3, this is where you get your buyer's agency form signed, and then that's even before you send them listings. So you want to get that signed before you send them listings. Okay. Good question. Let's see. This is Roger. Hey, Roger. How you doing, buddy? Roger's asking, what is the process for educating the clients on step 5 through 12? Do you have a second call after getting back the buyer agreement to discuss, educate client on process? Yeah. So Roger, what we generally do is once we get them set up, okay, and this is the first time through. So you get this person set up. They've got their listings. What you're going to do is to say you're going to set an appointment and say let's get together tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and you can do a webinar, by the way, that's free. Everybody here can get webinars for free. You have them go through the properties, and you can watch them because you can screen share and do all kinds of neat stuff. Matter of fact, you can even do screen sharing without having to even use a webinar. There's free screen share tools out there. But what you do is Roger, you first have to master this yourself. The steps 5 through 12. Actually, step 5 is really the big one. All right. So step 5, you've got to master yourself, and then once you're comfortable with that, once you know you can narrow down. Sorry, I keep jumping around there, guys. Hang on one second. Here we go. Once you get used to doing this yourself, this is when you start using this with your clients. It does take a couple of weeks typically for the average agent to grasp this. So what you do is once you master it and you start working with your clients, That's why I want you to practice it during the second module and not wait till the fourth module. You want to have them get on the phone with you and walk them through, because you're going to have the same listings that they have. You can do it over the phone. I used to do that. We didn't even have screen sharing, all right? But now with screen sharing, you can show them, you can drag your cursor all over and show them where you are, have them do it the first time with you, then every time they're after, they're doing it by themselves. Okay, it's an educational process, but it builds loyalty. It makes sure everybody's singing from the same song sheet, and they will appreciate it because nobody else is doing this for them. Nobody else shows them how to do this step. They just have to guess their way through it, you know. So that's a very good question. Let me go back here. That was Roger, and I think that's it for the questions. Okay, guys, we're kind of a critical juncture here. I could it's 9 minutes till 8 Eastern Standard Time. I could go ahead and go into the process we go through with the landlords. Let's do that. Let me go there. It might take us over a little bit, but there's one critical piece in the middle. It's actually this piece right here that's different than flippers. So let me go ahead and go to that. By the way, this is page I think 50. This is page 51 in your material. And we're going to go now to page 80, and this is the same 12-step instruction sheet, but it's the one we use for landlords, okay? All right, so let me reduce my panel so I can get this at the right place. All right, now as you notice, everything in the beginning is the same, okay, except for step number 5. And we'll continue on here in a second, but let me show you step number 5. This is really critical. Oops, sorry, I went a little bit too far. Let's bring that back to step 5. Okay, all right, so the first 4 steps are the same, but the 5th step is what's different. All right, now if you notice here, there's a big note. Different areas will have vastly different pricing models. Study your area and make adjustments accordingly. So, for example, I'm teaching in the Queens, New York, specifically Astoria or Jackson Heights tomorrow, and the average home value for Queens County, or basically the borough of Queens, is $460,900. Okay, the average rent is $2,400 per month. That's what they're paying here for rent. Can you imagine paying $2,400 a month rent? I mean, if you're in certain parts of California, New York, and then yes, you're used to that. But many people are not used to that. In Toronto, that's what we pay up there too. It's amazing. Any case, back to this. So the examples I gave are what we took this a sampling of rents in the area. All across North America several years ago. So you're going to see these are going to look low for some of you. Some of them are going to look like they're spot on, okay? But here's the deal. At step number 5, again, the key objective is to separate the good from the bad, or the better from the not so good, wheat from the chaff. And the way you do that is part of it is it's not based on list price. It's more based on the income production of the property. Yes, you're going to be interested in room sizes, lot sizes, photographs, and things like that. Initially, what we do is we still look at price. We still look at the list price of the property, and based on our knowledge, because you're going to be learning in modules 1, 2, and 3 about investing, so you're going to know how to do a cash flow worksheet on a property. You're going to know how to determine the net operating income. All right, and so when you know that, you're looking for properties where you believe the list price is lower than the actual value for the average rental property in that area. In this case, let's say you're looking at duplexes, for example. Okay, so in the case, first step's always the same. Second step is just the same also. You're gonna get rid of all the low grade properties, the ones that look beat up and tattered and torn and have a lot of problems with evictions and things like that. You can tell by the pictures what kind of properties these are, and you just want to use your intuition and focus on only the best properties within that price range. Okay. Now here's where the difference occurs, guys. Once you get down to the actual what we call the nitty-gritty of rentals, which is the money, where's the money coming from, how much, and how much it's going to cost me. This is the difference maker. So once you've eliminated all the properties that you believe are too high priced, and the ones that look like junk, and you're focused on the better properties, this is where we are right now. Okay, let's assume, for example, you're always focusing on duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Predominantly, that's where you're going to be with your investors in the beginning. Over time, yes, you and they will evolve, but initially you're focusing on duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Okay, the average rent in this example for one bedrooms was $400 to $500 a month for a one bedroom. The average rent for a two bedroom is $450 to $650, and the average rent for a three bedroom is $600 to $750. These are basic apartments. Okay, and again, you're in some areas. Believe it or not, there's areas of the country that are lower than this. Most areas right now are at or above this. Okay, in fact, three-bedroom apartment rentals in the median or middle-class America is between $900 and $1,000 a month right now. So in any case, you're looking at the rents for those rentals. You're looking at what rents are they bringing in and seeing if they're in these price ranges. Again, if you're in the Queens or the Bronx or Brooklyn, New York, you're probably looking at $2,000 to $2,500 a month for the average rental. If you're in Manhattan, it's even higher than that. Okay, if you're in Baltimore, Maryland, it might be something like $1,200. Okay, if you're in Washington D.C., it's probably going to be $2,000. So and it's easy to know what your average rents are for your area, because all you have to do is Google rentals. You can go to Craigslist and see what people are advertising for rentals. You can see what's being advertised on your MLS. You can look in the Sunday paper. Okay, and you also have, in every area, you have publications like the Green Sheet, the Penny Saver, of course your small local newspaper publications. That's the best way to do a grassroots analysis on what are the rentals bringing in your area. I would not use so much the online tools, because oftentimes they're overinflated. We've noticed that almost everywhere we've gone. We don't know why, but they're typically overinflated. That's what we notice. Look at the actual ads, and you'll see what people are asking for the rentals. Okay, but let's say what you're finding is these numbers right here. So you're looking for rentals that have rents in these price range, in these rental ranges, right? You're also going to be looking at some of the expenses. Like what are they saying they're paying for taxes and insurance and things like that. You want to look for figures that are within line for your area. And I know in a lot of cases listing agents are not filling in this data. They're not putting in the information that you and your client need to do a proper analysis. You'll have enough out there though that you do have the data. Also, a lot of listings nowadays simply have an attachment. They have a pro forma that they attach to the listing that you can download as an agent. Okay, so look for that. And if you still don't have it, what I used to do, what you can do is, if you think something looks promising and there's not a lot of data, email that agent. Don't just call them, but email them and say, look, I have a client who's interested in this, but he is not moving forward. He's not going to look at the property. He's not going to do anything until he sees a pro forma. So you've got to provide some data on the property. What's the income and what's the expense? A basic P&L. I like to see 3 years worth. Initially, I'll take the most current year, and if it looks appealing, then I'll go look at the property and then ask for the last 3 years. And you have to do that anyways, because whoever your buyer is using for a lender, they're going to want this information. They're going to want to know what are the rents and what are the expenses. They're not going to make a loan on a property without having that information, and it's got to be validated too, right? So in any case, you need the information anyways. You might as well get it up front and help you and your clients do a better job of analyzing these properties. Also within this step, you can determine what the average unit value is for the properties in your area. So if you know that the average, let's say your client's interested in the fourplexes, and the average unit value is $35,000 for a 3-bedroom, and you've got 4 3-bedrooms, then your client should not be looking at properties more than $140,000. Now again, that's going to seem low to a lot of us. I know, because a lot of the areas I've been in, or higher price than that. But believe it or not, there's a lot of rural areas and areas and what we call the not the A cities like Chicago, Houston, LA, and New York, but the B cities like Baltimore, Cleveland, Detroit, Buffalo, Indianapolis. Out in California, you're talking about like Bakersfield, things like that. These are not unreasonable values even today. So, but just remember, this is an example. You have to find out what those values are for your area. There's lots of tools allow you to do that. So back to the exercise. The point is this. The analysis on rentals is different than the analysis on flips. The analysis on rentals is going to be far more focused on income and expense, okay? Because at some point, you and your clients have to determine what is the cap rate for this property based on its current performance, and then you want to know what is the average cap rate in your area, and you want to be within basically a 1 percentage point of the area's average cap rate, to be competitive. So in any case, that's what you do on rentals. Everything else is essentially the same. So if you look at the rest of the process, everything else is almost identical. Okay, step number 6, step number 7, 8. Now, a little bit different down here. When you get to reviewing the final set of cost sheets and information sheets, analysis sheets, your course now looking at ones related to rentals, like the cash flow sheet, for example. Okay, that's the other difference. Everything else is exactly the same. So in any case, I'm glad I did that, because now I usually cover these in 2 different nights, but I thought it would be important to cover them together so you guys can grasp and see the difference. So let me go back to the questions here. Actually, I think we're caught up on the questions. In fact, we are. So in any case, guys, let's go ahead and let's dig into property management coming up. And I also will reserve a week for going over the opportunity evaluator, the rental property reporter, the basic cash flow worksheet, MAO formula, ARV. We'll do all of that in a separate session. And at that point, everybody should be ready. Perhaps what is it, September? So perhaps in October, we can start looking at some marketing again. But for those of you who are fairly new, just look back at all of the webinars we have recorded on the website. Again, they're cataloged by subject matter, and you can find any subject you want. And just go back to end of January of this year and move forward all the way into, say, June. You'll have just about every marketing campaign that's out there fully described. It's audio, it's visual. You can download it. You can strip off the audio. You can get the app and watch it on your phone. And just keep reviewing them. I like to get the audios because you can just plug them in you turn them on when you're in your car, But in any case, let's go ahead and do that coming up, and I'll look for feedback from you guys. You let me know, if we're moving too fast, if I'm moving too slow, what else you need help on. Just let me know, and we won't go forward until we cover that with you. Okay, so let's see. This is from Joe. Joe's asking, which module did you use for tonight's discussion, looking on page 80? It was module 2, Joe. So let me go back here. Now, there could have been updates to your version. So this is, let me go back up here. This is all module 2. And let me go to the beginning of module 2. We're getting close now. Module 2. Yep, it's module 2. And what you want to look for, Joe, the first step-by-step instructions for me, this is my page. Where's that? Where's my page number here? Hang on one second. My page 51, okay, for the flippers instructions. And for me, it's page 80 for the landlord instructions. Hang on, I'll be there in 1 second. Oops, I think I just passed it. There it is. Yeah, page 80 and 81, okay? Now, I know we have made some updates, Joe, so yours might be like page 82, for example, but this is what you're looking for right here. This is what you're looking for as soon as you see that page, and it's in module 2. Okay, let's see any other questions. Thanks. I had that module, just could not find that page right off the bat. I will look for it after a call. Okay. All right, guys. Well, listen. Thanks again for your participation. I appreciate the questions. I can't emphasize enough how important this is that you repeat this over and over, master it, grasp it, particularly if you've been using any other methods, the kind like the ones we call homegrown. You just kind of developed your own thing. I'm not saying what you've been doing is bad or wrong. What I suggest is learn this, master it, and then you can decide what you want to do going forward. But we've determined over the years this is the best way to get the best offers going in and the highest percentage of offer acceptance using this exact process. Okay, and this is over literally tens of thousands of transactions from literally hundreds and or thousands of investor agents over the years. So, okay, guys. God bless you all. I hope you have a wonderful weekend coming up, and we will see you. Actually, next week is going to be. By the way, we had to move it to next Tuesday. We were going to have it next Thursday, the 15th, but I have a late class in Manhasset, New York, which is on Long Island, and I was afraid I wouldn't finish in time to be ready for the webinar. So we're going to do that Tuesday, the 13th, and we will see you then. Okay, you guys have a great night. Bye-bye.